Welcome to my Bivariate presentation on measuring political knowledge in Nigeria by Lisbon 2012 POL242. To begin, my research question will be on what factors lead to varying degrees of political knowledge in Nigeria. The dataset I will be using is the Afrobarometer 2005 to 2006, and the country I've selected will be Nigeria, with a total of N 1,304 cases. The analytical methods I've used in my research are reliability index, cross-tabulation, analysis of variance, chi-square measure, Kendall's Tau-B, and Kramer's V. Research and literature review has suggested some factors that may influence the level of political knowledge in Nigeria. Jennifer Jarrett, Jason Barbas, and Toby Bolson suggest that education along with transmitting information in ways that can be easily understood by the least educated, such as television, are factors that can determine political knowledge. Furthermore, authors Finkel and Ernst suggest that political knowledge may be developed through association and activity within a religious group. My dependent variable measuring the concept of political knowledge was created through an index of 4 indicators. The indicators used are whether they could identify their local councillor, identify presidential term limits, identify local MP, and to name their deputy/vice president. These indicators created a reliable index with an alpha score of 0.6183. These indicators are close enough to represent my concept of political knowledge. The standard deviation score results in 0.498, suggesting that there is normal variation. The kurtosis and skew provided a score under 3, which suggests a normal shape. My dependent variable was then categorized into 3 categories of little, medium, and high levels of political knowledge. I have selected 3 independent variables that will lead to my 3 hypotheses. My 3 independent variables measure frequency of news through television, respondents' level of education, and activity and status within a religious group. My first hypothesis is that the more often news is viewed in the form of television, this will lead to higher levels of political knowledge. My second hypothesis is that the higher level of education will lead to higher levels of political knowledge. And lastly, that the higher level of activity/status in a religious group or religious association will lead to higher levels of political knowledge. For my null hypothesis, it can be said that no relationship exists between news viewed by television, education, and religious status with the levels of political knowledge. My first cross-tabulation shows the level of political knowledge by the frequency of news through television. The cross-tabulation suggests that those that receive the news through television every day yield a higher level of knowledge than the rest of respondents only by a slight margin. Those who receive the news through television sometimes and every day are also more consistently more knowledgeable as the categories tend to increase. Overall, the relationship is weak, and those who never receive news through television still produce a high level of political knowledge. F probability score of 0.000 observes a relationship that is statistically significant and has less than 1 out of 1,000 chance to result due to sampling error. Tau-B is selected because both variables are ordinal and represent 3 by 3 graph, and the Tau-B score yields a 0.0358, meaning a weak association exists between my variables. P significance yields a value of 0.60001, showing that my association is not significant, likely due by chance. My second cross-tabulation shows the level of political knowledge by level of education. The cross-tabulation suggests that those at the high school level have the lowest level of knowledge on political matters. What can be seen is that regardless of the level of education, all levels contain a majority of respondents to a high level of political knowledge, solving my original theory. My F probability score of 0.0271 observes a relationship that is somewhat significant. Tau-B is selected because both variables are ordinal. The Tau-B score yields a negative 0.0075, meaning that the statistic is too small to make any real claim. A weak association exists between my variables. P significance yields a value of 0.6836, showing that my association is not significant and likely due by chance. My third cross-tabulation shows the level of political knowledge by status in a religious group. My cross-tabulation suggests that official leaders have the highest level of political knowledge and that active members are more dominant within the high category. Most easily observed is the fact that regardless of respondent status within a religious group, they all have similar high scores of high political knowledge. F probability score of 0.0001 observes a relationship that is statistically significant. Kramer's V is selected because a nominal and ordinal variable are present, creating a cross-tabulation larger than 3 by 2. Kramer's V score of 0.09326 suggests that the relationship is very weak and not acceptable. P significance yields a value of 0.00215, showing that some relationship may exist between variables but are unlikely due to chance. My findings suggest a very similar trend across all my independent variables, that all respondents maintain reasonably high levels of political knowledge. My cross-tabulation showed some relationship between my variables, but for the most part were insignificant. Through my tests and cross-tabulations, my null hypothesis is greatly supported. My data findings for the most part were inconclusive. What I can conclude from my findings is that there's very little association between my variables, but not as strong as I first believed. What can be said is that alternative mediums of news may provide varying levels of political knowledge. Different levels of education may not provide significant gains in political knowledge, but rather the fact that respondents have an education against those who do not. And finally, that belonging and having an active status in different groups and associations instead of religious groups may provide varying degrees of political knowledge.